am telling you, it is the definition between an entrepreneur and an employee. The employee goes to the cliff, looks over the cliff. So is there a balloon down there? Do I lose space? What happens if it hurts? What if I land on my neck? The entrepreneur, they said, when you jump off the cliff, backs up 10 feet to get a fucking run.
This town needs an enema.
Fuck.
Julio! Where's Commissioner Gordon?
Come on. You guys are speaking.
Too stupid!
You don't really think you can leave? Things change.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Everything changed. Yeah, and anyone who tells you different is just lying.
You know who this is? This is Mark motherfucking Sylvester.
That was a little bit better. Yeah,
You got it.
we'll get it. We'll keep on getting it. I found out this is actually, there we go. Kind of hard to snap my fingers with that. Yeah, I'll try. Actually, I can take this off now. We'll take it off, everybody. I forgot I had it on. I gotta ice my wrist, because I'm getting old.
Yeah.
My wrists hurt.
No,
It's a
I
whole
guess.
thing. It's a whole thing. What's going on, brother? How was your
Well,
a
good.
mini vacay from the shows? Because I didn't see you
It
last.
was good.
Monday.
We Mark and I donated some books for auction to help out with mental
Oh, nice.
mental health awareness and suicide prevention.
Oh, that's a long
One of
title.
Missy's son is a musician.
Oh,
A
nice.
bunch of young kids doing songs of the 80s, 90s. It was nice. So
Good deal.
not really, I was kind of sweating the bullet that nobody would get it, but we won. I mean, they won, so it was cool. It was cool.
Welcome everybody. It is Thursday night at 10 o'clock. Where would you rather want to be? We're gonna say hi to the chat. Hail the Lord was number one in the chat and in our hearts. Good to see you, brother. We got
Yeah.
Christopher Bouchard in the house.
Bouchard.
Good to see you. Mark
Good to see you.
Pengrin
Yeah.
says Brohawk is a gentleman and a scholar. Yes, I concur. The time scales, and there's greetings from Vancouver, Canada. Good to see you.
You move?
Duck Bacon's in the house, as always. Great to see you, brother. Says, hail, Joe. Sean, hail the mighty David Williams. Hail to the chat. Good to see you, brother.
Nice.
Member of the channel, Rick Saylor, is here as well. Always a pleasure
What's up,
having you in
brother?
here, bro. Gordon Good Brothers in the house is the beginning of the intro music weirdly syncs up with the beginning of what? Really?
Aaliyah's rocked the boat.
I don't know how to take
Our,
that.
our love is only 1 in a million, so I can see where you're coming from.
That is actually an unused riff from my band way back in the day that we ended up not doing anything with. I was like, you know what? We'll make it for the intro.
You're a Timberland fan?
No, man. Like it had nothing to do with that.
No Bagoo?
It was a metal band. All right. It wasn't influenced by anything except for metal.
Soul is soul, Joe.
Member of the channel, Cosmic Studios is in the house. Great to see
Hey,
you.
brother.
Sean is
Good
here
to
as
see you.
well. Hail
Hey.
chat. Hail to you.
Hello, you.
A good old friend of mine, Greg Harms, over on Facebook. Appreciate you joining us. Greg, I have to say this every time he jumps in here, was the original colorist that helped me out with Reaper Destroyer back in 2006, 7. One of those
Nice.
years when we first started doing it. So yeah, he taught me a lot
Okay.
about indie comics back in the day. An indie vet is Greg.
Nice.
D-Rail's in the house. Good to see you.
Hey.
Pizza's here. Makes me hungry.
Yo.
I need some pizza. Although I did have this awesome firecracker wrap from Jimmy John's. It's very tasty. I don't know how it's sitting. We'll find out in the morning, but very, very tasty. Res. I'm gonna mess this up. Rosmaine in the house. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. All right. If you guys haven't yet, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel wherever you guys are watching. We're trying a new one. We're going to stream to Twitch. Have no following over there, so we'll see what happens. So if you're watching over on Twitch, we appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Shout out to the people on the Facebook. Shout out to the Xites over on X, and of course the Core 20 here on YouTube. I'm feeling good. It's Thursday. We're going to talk some art, and I'm looking forward to it. Welcome to
Art and Stuff. 24 years of business on a technicality. Like Norman, my skills are the baits. I may be a little dysfunctional, but I'm functional. The editor extraordinaire, the Hispanic God on paper. Sorry, B Rose. I've been smoother than your days. I'm Sean Ahrendt. With me as always, my brother Not.
Very talented, very sexy, very distinguished, always narcissistic, but never vain. Staunch defender of Rob Liefeld and Gina Carano, lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M Sonntag, if you prefer, as the Pope likes to call me, JMS. Welcome to the show, and it's always an awesome show we have for you tonight, because, damn it, Sean, who do we have on tonight?
We got an esteemed gentleman. He started off his career at age 16, doing pinups and the cover on the book. Joe, do you know it's called Space Beaver?
I did not know that, but I want to check it out.
Here you go. He went to Tommy and the Monsters. He got hired by Marvel, DC, Image, went into the animation game, working on such great like Superman, Ben 10, and many, many others. Without me stuttering like Stuttering Steve, please bring up Mr. David Williams.
David, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing tonight?
Doing okay, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's our pleasure.
It's our honor. Absolutely. Sorry about jumping through the intros. We know it's only an hour show. We try to get to the guests as soon as possible without hearing our own voices too much, because we all know I like to hear my own voice because I'm very vain like that. Maybe I'm not narcissistic, whatever it is, whatever I say in my intro. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. We've been wanting to have you on for a while, so this is awesome to finally get you on.
Yeah. I love you guys' show. I don't watch it nearly enough, but when I do watch it, it's very entertaining because I watch it when I draw.
Thank you.
So,
Wow.
It's like being in a studio full of people, so I get to hear and laugh and sometimes comment or whatever. But I'll usually do it when I'm drawing.
Nice. No, that's awesome.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got Ethan in the house.
Nice.
Didn't he ever used to have a check mark, or is that not a thing on YouTube anymore?
I don't pay attention.
All right. Well, shout out. Good to see you. Says, hell yeah, King David. Yes, sir. In the house. All right, Sean, I'm going to throw the show to you. I'm going to say hey to the chat real quick.
Sure. So what got you into comic books, art? What's your origin? Like, what gives you a juice to want to create and be dope?
You almost ran down my whole entire thing on your intro. So I have no reason to even be here. So see you later.
That was it. See you guys.
It goes all the way back. I was always drawing. I was always doing something, and my mom, didn't really need a babysitter or really need to tend to me because I always was into paper and whatever materials and stuff like that. And I often make the joke that I was drawing on the inside of her womb and stuff like that. So, you're going to see some, old David Williams drawings if they have to open her up or something. But no, what got me started was actually like Popeye cartoons, like the Max and Dave Fleischer cartoons.
Yeah.
Right.
And then later the Superman TV show with George Reeves. I didn't know what a superhero was up until that point. And but the Popeye cartoon, there was a show in Los Angeles because I was born in Hollywood.
Oh, no shit.
And there was this show called the Family Film Festival, and it was hosted by Tom Hatton, and that came on in the afternoon, but in the morning, early-ish, there's the Family Film Festival, and he would show Popeye cartoons, the Fleischer Superman every once in a while.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how I got to understand that, oh, here's Superman. And, you know, he would show all of these really great cartoons. And on his show, he would have kids send in a squiggle. Like they could just do a squiggle on a piece of paper and they'd mail it in, and they would blow it up and put it on a canvas, and he would turn it into like a popular cartoon like Popeye,
Wow.
and the Fleischer Superman and
Yeah.
whatnot. And that just blew my mind. And
Right.
so every time he was on, I was trying to, you know, mimic the squiggle and try to draw whatever he drew and try to remember it so I could do it at school the next day and say, hey, look at what I could draw and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what got me into the love of drawing, is watching that show. And then the love of comic books and superheroes was because of the Fleischer cartoon and the George Reeves Superman. And I didn't know what comic books were at that time.
Oh, okay.
And so me seeing that, that's all I knew. I just thought there was only Superman. And my neighbors next to my grandmother and father, they had comic books, and I was friends with them, and they said, hey, you see this? And, you know, I thought I was advancing them and said, yeah, there's this guy called Superman, and, you know, and he does this. And it's like, oh, yeah? Oh, that's cute. And
Yeah.
they had like stacks and stacks of books, and I was just like, what the heck is this? You know, and they mostly had DC comics. And so I was a DC head growing up because of them.
Right.
And they had, you know, some, you know, Marvel things. And then, you know, once I, you know, had access to the TV controller, there was a UHF channels and stuff, and they would show cartoons back there. And then they would show the 60s Marvel cartoons, and then I lost my mind again. You know, I'm just like, what the?
Yeah.
You know, my mind was just blown and stuff. And so I want to draw all of this stuff, but again, you know, I'm not understanding the whole concept of like, this is going to be my life. This is going to be what I do for a living. I just loved it at that moment. But knowing that there's people who do this and there's jobs to go to, and, you know, because my parents didn't foster that. They had regular jobs, you know. And, you know, my mom was a real estate agent. My stepdad was a doctor. My dad worked for the city and all this other kind of stuff. So I only knew that kind of work. My grandfather was a chef, and my other grandfather was a security guard and worked for the mayor, and did all this kind of, you know, stuff that I, you know, in your mind, you think you're trained to be that, you know what I mean? But understanding what it took later on. I mean, I didn't go to a comic book convention until I was like 13 or 14.
Okay.
And then a few years later after that, that's when I become a professional. So it was a very short jump for me to get into this, because I was so dogged at it. I was constantly drawing. You know, I'd get in trouble in school because I was just drawing. And I wasn't getting trouble from the teacher. I'd get in trouble from my mom because I'd have a normal homework paper that had just math or history, and then here's Superman over on the side, and she'd like slap me up the side of the head just because I had a Superman drawing or whatever.
Did you ever save any of those? Did you ever save any of those papers at all?
At one point, my aunt did.
Yeah.
And she still probably has some things here and there, but not much. Cool. But me personally, I'm one of those artists that if I don't like it, it ends up in the trash.
I feel you.
And
I feel you. Yeah.
It took years later where my wife was just like, because she became an observer of what goes on at comic book conventions and what they sell. And she's a little bit more cold-blooded than me, but she's like, your garbage, your garbage is better than a lot of these people's finished stuff. So
exactly. Yeah.
She was taking stuff, my layouts and my roughs out of the garbage and she was stashing them away without me knowing. And so she
Smart.
said, okay, look at all this stuff I saved. Let's take this to the show. And I'm embarrassed by this stuff. I'm like, I don't want people to
Of
see that. I
course.
want them to see the final product.
Yo.
And so we go to the show, and she had about it was about that thick, full of,
Wow.
roughs. And they're cheap. And like not finished drawings and all this other kind of stuff. And then, I wasn't selling them for much, but she made about $1,700
Nice.
off of those, roughs and thumbnails and all this other kind of stuff. And now I look at it different. And so behind my desk right here and my desk over here, I have nothing but FedEx boxes full of art.
Oh, sweet.
It's like, here's about, 8 of them over here, and there's another, 6 or 7 down there, and there's 10 back there, and I got some in storage. So there's just nothing but art, that, even if I sold them at $1 each, I'm like, okay,
right,
$100,000, something like that.
It's a great idea.
I advise people who do original art, just keep everything, because it may not mean something to you, but it's going to mean something to somebody else, because the reason why it doesn't mean anything to you is because you're too close to it.
Right. Yeah.
You know the imperfections more than anybody else who could insult it and say, "Oh, this looks." You don't think I lived with this? Yeah. Day in and day out until I finish. Of course, I know what's wrong with it. So, but again, to someone else, they don't see the flaws; they just see the magic. And that's what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. I love seeing stuff like that from other artists, right? Just seeing the doodles here, the sketches here. Absolutely. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, like we're too close to it. Like we're our own worst critics. We see only the imperfections, all that kind of stuff. I completely get that. I was just asking, is I wish that I still had some of the stuff I did when I was younger. And just like when I would have no idea what I was doing, I was just trying to emulate comics, and I would just draw my own comics. I still wish I had kept some of that stuff just in my collection, just to look back at, So,
sure.
But I just think that's really cool. You just spend time in your homework, do your homework, draw a picture of Superman. Like that's badass.
You know what? Excuse me, sir. It's hot rodding back there.
Nice.
The thing about the internet, and just the thing about what everybody has a computer and everybody has a scanner. When I got in so young, I thought most of my old work got burned because I thought I destroyed it all. Even people who own stuff, I snuck into their house and destroyed it or whatever. But there's this thing called comic art fans. Yep. And there's people that occasionally go, "Oh, hey, look at what I got." And they have like a drawing I did in 88.
That's so cool.
That's cool.
87, something crazy, and it looks terrible. But, it's back when I was jocking Arthur Adams really hard, and I actually took some of those drawings and I posted them on Facebook as a comparison and showed like, here's a Batman I did way back then, and here's a Batman I did, just last year, just to show people growth of an artist. And you, as an artist, sometimes you need to see that or show younger artists that, hey, don't stop, don't get frustrated, look at where you could grow to, because it's always an evolution. Even at my accelerated age, I find myself learning something, even from these younger artists that are coming out and be, new talent that I'm just like, damn, like, okay, I got to figure out how he did this lick and I got to add it to my, game. So
that's what I love about art is I'm sure that's probably what Sean was going to say. I'm sorry to cut you off. Sean, go ahead.
No,
I see you had a point.
I was just going to say like those prelims and roughs, those are great learning tools for up and comers or wannabes. Cause we see you, like your gears are starting to grind. It's not polished, but you see, you can kind of connect the dots and it's phenomenal. It's an art book within itself, but
sure.
Joey was a little bit more elaborate and elegant of what he was going to say.
Well, I was just going to say, like, that's the cool thing about being an artist is it is something that you constantly improve on if you're
Mhm.
trying to improve. I mean, you look at some of the great artists of when I say my generation, it's the guys I came up idolizing, right? So I use Mark Silvestri as an example all the time, just to see the maturation process of that dude's art from the 80s to now, and just see all the different stuff that he did over the years, where he kind of tweaked his style here or there in the 90s, tweaked it again in the 2000s, and now he's kind of doing this really cool, just rough, scratchy, organic, energetic, lines on his Batman stuff and everything. But just to see that you can just evolve, and you can take stuff. You see something that somebody else did that you like, and you can incorporate it into your art, and it kind of becomes its own form and everything. That's what I love about art, constantly,
Yeah.
constantly evolving.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think every artist that you ever liked stood on the shoulders of someone else that they liked.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It
That's
was
kind
funny.
of a fun deep dive. Like you find out like where they came from or where those people came from, and then it's just a rabbit hole, and you're just like, holy shit, who's Ruby Nebers or however you pronounce it? And he's like, this is phenomenal. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It took me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, even Jack Kirby, everybody thinks he's an island. No, but he had influences.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. It took me forever when I was younger, because I was just so obsessed with the guys that I liked, like I just wanted to know about their art and study their art and everything. It took me a long time to realize that they had, people that influenced them. And they're like, okay, I'll go check out these names. And then when you go and look at their influences, you see right off the bat, like, oh yeah, I can see how these guys took their figure work, or the way they drew muscles or the action scenes from these guys, and they started getting more invested in the guys that they got. Yeah, and you can, like Sean said, go down the rabbit hole and just see, you see who inspires who. It's I think comic art is such a unique thing because of that, just the evolution over the years, going back to, like you said, Jack Kirby. We could start there, but I'm sure he was influenced by a ton of artists before him and everything, to now in the 2024. It's just, the passion of comic book art I could talk about forever and just get lost in it. Like, it is just truly something that I'm just truly in love with, and I think it's just really, really special.
Absolutely.
It's go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it's what you bring to the table, even if you're doing someone else. But what are you going to bring to it? It's just like Travis Charris was big on Jim Lee.
Yeah.
But then he evolved away from it, but he was still building on what he learned from Jim Lee. And I still see Jim Lee isms, even in his refined, ultra artistic art. I still see certain traits that it shows a love back, to, his love for Jim, so everybody has it. And he just added more information in his artwork, where say Jack Kirby, where he's taken his inspirations, and what he's doing is that he's creating an abstract shorthand of what he liked.
Right.
So that's what he's bringing to the table, and we still use that language that he created, to this day.
Yeah, it's really truly something, to be proud of being a part of, because whether you're independent, you're professional, or you're just a hobbyist, like, just to be in that club of learning from somebody that learned from somebody, of the greats, like, it is this weird kind of club to be in when you're an artist. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining it right or I'm just rambling, but it's kind of, I just feel that way, like when we talk to other artists, that whether they're experienced, and Sean and I really haven't done anything, we're independent artists, but just to talk to guys like you or anybody that's been there, done that, it's just, we all just feel like we're in the same club, and it's just really cool.
It's inspiring.
Inspiring. Yeah, that's probably a better way to say it. I'm kind of tripping on my words tonight. It's absolutely inspiring.
Yeah,
sure. Well, I mean, and that goes back to what I was saying before, like how I like to watch your show. I'll watch a myriad of different, artists or streamers shows when they're talking comics, because that keeps me in the mood to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just in my own head, it gets boring, and sometimes you got to break the monotony and laugh at whatever someone's saying or get invested in the trail that they're taking you or whatever it is and stuff like that. And, I love draw streams. Those are great. I love because no matter how great or so-called not great someone is, to me it's all magic, because I like seeing a blank piece of paper all of a sudden have something, and it's recognizable as life. Everything that we do is a bad impersonation of life anyway. So I love seeing it. I love seeing it.
The coolest thing when people have asked about, a lot of people that don't draw, they're always kind of really interested in people that can draw, because you recognize talent, and it's same thing with people that can sing or athletes. You just kind of want to pick their brain, like, man, how do you do that? When people ask about like how do you draw something, just like how do you create that out of your mind? Because sometimes people are just like, I can't even think about what to draw, let alone actually draw it. And besides just telling like practice and all that, I was like, the coolest thing I love about drawing is like what you just said. You look at that blank piece of paper and then look at the finished product and just see all the stuff that you did. I mean, like it's almost like clay kind of, except you're just drawing. You're just forming stuff out of rough lines, rough, and you just redefining it, rendering it, and then finally at some point you got this beautiful piece of art, or at least all art to me, like is beautiful, like that finished product, and it's just like, wow, I created that out of nothing. Like that is super cool.
Yeah, it's 100% like sculpting. So I use that as a reference, especially for young artists, because I tell them to, don't when you're learning how to draw, don't try to draw straight off. Sketch. Sketching is like sculpting. You're slapping clay on a slab, and then you're chiseling away the stuff. You're not trying to refine it yet. You're trying to find the basic shapes. It's very much like sculpting.
What's your favorite part of the drawing process? Because I've said it before, like I really love the sketching part, just because it's raw, it's loose, it's just energetic, like rendering everything and making it finished product is really, really cool. But like the initial creating sketching part is my favorite part.
Yeah, my favorite part is when I get to sign it and I'm done. No, just kidding. No. I don't know. It varies from piece to piece, because just say like if it was a splash page or a cover, you're thinking of that whole entire thing, and you're thinking of the main thing that you really want to draw, right. But when you're doing a page, there's a lot of monotony that goes on, because you got to do backgrounds and you got to do, perspective, and you got to do all of this kind of, drudgery, so that.
Oh, I think he froze. Statistical Zero said, if you can get good at drawing and talk at the same time, your game will improve dramatically. When you actually concentrate, that's the magic of practicing on stream. Yeah, I'm not good at drawing and talking at the same time. I'll say that right off the bat. Like I have to actually physically stop. Ask my wife. Anytime we have a conversation and I'm drawing, if I'm drawing on the couch or something and she's talking, nope, didn't hear a single word.
Yeah, did they get mad at you? It's like, I'm creating art here.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm concentrating, babe. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Yeah, there. I'm sorry about that. It wouldn't be a show with Dave. It wouldn't be a show with David Williams if my camera didn't act funny.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember where we were when we left off, though. That's how my brain works.
Favorite part about creating the page.
Oh yeah, the creation.
The favorite thing about creating a page. It all depends. It all depends. Because when I do a page that has continuity on it, I'll usually try to find or make two cool things on the page, and everything else could be all right.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing a cover, I want everything to be all right. So the pressure's different, and it's less constraining. I don't like drawing small. I like drawing big. So that's why I like doing covers and splash pages and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I get to flex.
Right.
Yeah, all little noodly stuff is very time consuming for me.
It took a long time for me to actually feel comfortable drawing smaller because for the longest time I want to do the same thing too. Like I want to draw big in your face. You know, I grew up in the 90s, right? So I mean, like when I'm reading comics in the 90s, it was the big splashy panel breaking, you know, comic art, which I fell in love with, and that's kind of like what I wanted to draw. And I actually kind of had to force myself to start doing different scenes when I was working on my book Reaper Destroyer, and start doing a little bit smaller figure work for storytelling, you know, because I'm like, all right, I can't always just have 4 panels on a page because I want to be like, boom, in your face, you know, like I gotta actually, you know, draw a scene. So that kind of forced me to kind of mature a little bit in my way that I approach drawing, I guess. So, but yeah, it's definitely not as fun. I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Statistical Zero says just one panel of the page has to be memorable. Kelly Jones. Great point.
I'll work with that.
Yeah, great point. In fact, the books that have been done over the years, I think Kirby has done it a bunch of times, and I'm sure there's a ton of artists that have done it. They've just done a single book, all splash pages, you know, but told a story throughout the entire book. And if you do it well, I mean, you almost forget that all you're doing is looking at one image per page. Like it's really incredible. Yeah. Even Eric Larson did that. As much as I'm not a big fan of of him, he even did that once with Savage Dragon, and it was actually pretty cool. But yeah, it's that'd be awesome. Be a fun challenge.
John Byrne was probably the first person I noticed to do that in a Marvel fanfare.
Oh, nice.
I forgot what number it was, but it was almost like his response to Chris Claremont saying, you know, comics. He was saying something about the writing and stuff, how important the writing is, and you know, his words and all this kind of stuff. And John Byrne did a Marvel fanfare where there's hardly no dialogue whatsoever, and it's just all splash pages. It's all art, and that thing sold through the roof. The thing
bet
it was awesome. Yeah. And then the next thing he did to kind of mock that whole Chris Claremont thing, it was when he did that Alpha Flight Snowbound, where it was just nothing but white panels and just nothing but text.
I love it. I love it. It's always funny the conversation you have with people about art versus story. Now we all know for a good comic book, you need to marry them well, and you'll have a really good comic book. But I've said it 1,000 times when people have been on the show. As an artist myself, and I follow artists, like I could be completely fine with a crappy story as long as the art was great, because I'm just looking at the art anyway. You know, I'm just falling in love with the art. And I've heard people do the opposite. They're like, you know, as long as the story is good, it could be bad art, which blows my mind. I just can't even fathom that thought. But you know, I do get good story, yes, but the art, which it's a visual medium, it's got to be awesome.
Yeah, no, that only works in movies where if the visuals were kind of meh, but the story was awesome, it almost compensates for the bad camera or whatever.
Right.
And but in comics that doesn't work. You know,
right?
You better have some kick-ass art, because people will just like, I don't care about this story. I can't get past the art. You know,
right? Well, that's kind of the 90s, right? Like everyone likes to bash the 90s for bad storytelling, which I think is an overstatement of what the 90s were. Like, yeah, there were some bad stories in the 90s and flashy art and stuff like that. I get it. But that's not to say like there was all across the board bad writing, because that's just not true. But, you know, I mean, that's just one thing that was like, I grew up, man. You know, I would much rather look at Jim Lee than read Chris Claremont. And that's no offense to Chris Claremont. You know, fantastic stories, great writer. But I would much rather just flip through the book and look at that beautiful, beautiful art and be lost in that with the imagination instead of reading. You know, I'm still that way. I'm 42 years old and I'm still kind of that way.
I mean, that system, depending on who the person is doing it, if, you know, those books didn't sell themselves, you know, it sold because it captured people's imaginations and their minds. You know, of course, you could look at something in hindsight and say, "Oh, what was I smoking?" But but for the most part, you know, hey, I bought some of those books. You know, I was just like, "Hey, whoa, this
Right.
is just jumping off the shelves." It was more impressive than what DC and Marvel were selling at that time. You know, and then what did DC and Marvel try to do after they left and made such a big boom? They hired a bunch of artists to try to draw like those guys.
Yep. Exactly.
You know, so it meant something. It's saying something. You know, even in some of my art now, because I know my audience, you know, I tend to draw towards my audience, not exactly what I would want to do. I would say, what do they want? Because I'm in the service business to help serve them for what they want.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I'm even doing,
Yep.
I'm doing some of the licks that I know that they would like, you know, in my pen work and stuff. And I say, oh, this is kind of familiar with this certain group that likes this stuff. So let me aim that way, you know. So
That's cool, man, that you keep that in mind, just because, yeah, art is such a broad scope. Like, there are people like the flashy stuff, people like the storytelling stuff, but just to keep that in mind, so you're just kind of giving a little bit to everybody. I think that's a really awesome attitude to have. I had a question. So, you being in the industry when the 90s boom kind of thing kind of happened and all the big guys left and created Image, and, you know, you had kind of this changing, I don't necessarily know if you want to say changing of the guard from like the old guard to the new guard, but, you know, comics were changing and the way the storytelling was happening sequentially. What did you think as you saw that developing while you were in the industry?
oh, I thought it was great. I mean, I didn't think that it was going to do anything to take away my love of what I loved, because I grew up on, you know, Kirby, Ramita Sr.,
Yeah.
Buscema, and Alex Toth, and all of that kind of stuff. And when I was going through my artistic evolution, and then I got fixated on Arthur Adams, almost all of that stuff, you know, disappeared for a while because I had to
Right.
learn what Arthur Adams was doing. And it just took a while to get out of my young systems, because like what you said before, young people get fixated on a thing. And it took me a long time to realize that art is really broad, and it could be as broad as your imagination allows it to be.
Right.
You know, and I'll talk about me working in animation and how that broadened my horizons more.
Oh, yeah.
But when the image guys came in, I thought it was great. I was just like, hey, good for them, you know. And I was buying everything at that time, so they weren't going to stop me from buying, you know, all of the classic guys that I loved.
Right.
And
For sure.
also it wasn't going to stop me, you know, because I was buying the image guys stuff as well, you know, back when we had disposable income to do that kind of thing. Can't speak for today, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you could barely even buy a comic and stuff.
Yeah, dude, it's expensive. Shout out to Todd McFarlane for still keeping it relatively cheap at $2.99, but most comics
Look at
are
him.
$4.99 and above. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people should follow his lead if they want to sell more comics, to be perfectly honest.
100%.
But you know, I love what they did, and you know, their influence. And again, it still influences me to this day. Do I think any one image guy that I go, oh man, you know, do I think they're in my top 10? No, you know, they're not even in my top 20, but what they brought to the game is immeasurable.
Yeah, no, I get you. I absolutely get you. Yeah, you mentioned the animation. Yeah, how'd that affect and change your art? Sorry, Sean, I feel like I'm doing all the talking, but I know
No, you're
dealing
good.
with a bummed sholdder, so
Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm highly medicated up, so forgive me for just weebling and wobbling. Just enjoying the show. A little stoned.
Okay. Well, animation changed me immensely. And I would advise any comic book artist, if you could, well, animation's kind of funny right now, so they're doing a recession, so to speak. But when it was more plentiful, I was recommending other comic book artists that I know, known professionals, and stop what you're doing and go into animation for at least a year or two. Just go away from comics and then come back to comics. Your art level will, go up like tenfold. Because one, you're part of a team and you're forced to draw not like yourself. And that's a good tool. You need to break yourself to build yourself up.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And then you could strengthen the things that you were before with the knowledge that you have from animation, because that's what I learned working on so many different shows, because you're forced to draw like someone else. You're not there. You're not hired because, oh, you're David Williams and you draw like, no, you're good enough to draw, shapes and circles, so you could follow these shapes and circles. So do this, I could do artwork that's indiscernible from Bruce Timm. You know what I mean? Where you'd hold two pieces up and you'd be hard pressed for someone to go, oh, that's not a Bruce Timm.
Wow. Yeah.
Because that's how regimented they had us. No, you have to do it exactly like this. Glenn Murakami was the art director, and he was like cracking that whip. Start all over. This line is off. You're like, dang, this was 100% done. Start all over from scratch. That kind of thing. So, but it was good for me, because when you get your spirit broken in that way, it's almost like starting over, and you're finding something else new, not merely about that other artist, which you admire, but about yourself, what you could do and where you could push yourself. So that's why I think it's important. And the things that I learned while I was in animation, because I would go do what do you call it? Life drawing classes.
Oh, okay.
And Bill Stout. Do you know who Bill Stout is?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds
The name does.
Okay, you could Google him.
Okay.
He's a great dinosaur artist and stuff like that. And
Okay,
works
okay.
in film and all this kind of stuff. But in his home, he would have life drawing classes, and animators from far and wide would go to his house just to do life drawings. It intimidated me. I only went like 3 or 4 times. But I was so in awe of all of the other artists. It's almost like I didn't want to draw. I would pretend draw just to see what the other guys were drawing and how they would get to their conclusions and stuff. Because I learned better just by watching someone else do it.
Same.
You know what I mean? And so I'm like a sponge that way. And I say, okay, I could use this and wring out what I don't need, and apply it to what I do. And so me seeing all these great artists doing fantastic stuff. It's like you could name the best comic book artist These guys in William Stout's, life drawing class would destroy them.
Yeah. No,
they were amazing, and they would just knock this stuff out, and I was just like, how are you guys doing this? It was crazy. But that stuff was important, just to be around other artists that do different things, and you start to emulate them or figure them out. And from animation, I went on, because I went to about 4 or 5 different animation studios, from Warner Brothers to Sony, to Cartoon Network, to MGM. I think I did something for Deke. It was just a whole bunch of stuff, floating around. And then from there, I went to consumer products at Warner Brothers.
Very cool.
And consumer products is drawing for Warner Brothers. They have the Hanna-Barbera characters. So you can name any Hanna-Barbera. They had the Warner Brothers characters. They had DC, but they also had the movie stuff. So they had Iron Giant. They had Osmosis Jones. They had what was that? What was that Michael Jordan movie with the cartoons?
Space
Jam. They had Space Jam. So we had to learn how to draw all of those different things at any given time because we're creating style.
Oh no, he froze at the best part. This has been it's been a great conversation. I like it. I've been digging this. I've been loving this.
Yep.
While we wait for David to get back, YSA says being a fine artist. First, I find comic art a different animal. Fine artists will always be or will be a different world if they try comic art, though may find it easier to adjust than other way around. Well, I was going to bring up just like the life drawing classes and people that can draw realistically. That blows me away. The talent that has blows because I can't do that. You know, like I draw my cartoony style, you know. And I was going to bring up with David that it's hard for me to try to draw in a different style because it's just like this is the style I've developed, right? Like, you know, maybe if I tried I could, but it's almost like the talent's not there, or maybe the desire's not there to do like a cartoony style or an animation style or something. It's almost like a mental block. It's like, no, I have to draw the way I draw because that's what I've established over the last, you
that's
know,
your vision.
Yeah. So that is really interesting though. Like, you know, the whole having to specifically draw a certain way for animation and be like forced to learn all that stuff. Like that's very interesting. We got you back, David.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, that's fine. No, we were just saying like we
I'm
absolutely loving the conversation that you were saying with the whole animation. So yeah, go ahead, pick it right back up because this has been fascinating.
Okay, so what was the very last thing I was saying?
You were just talking about in like how you were bouncing around from different studios and like how you had to draw specifically like the things that they wanted you to.
So working at Consumer Products. So we had the whole library of things to draw that were at Warner Brothers that was cartoon based or some movie based because we worked on Harry Potter.
Oh, nice.
And we did like most of that packaging art and all that kind of stuff. That's us.
Okay.
You know, sometimes when you see coloring books that are still out to this day or some things that has like line art, that's still us, you know. So,
nice.
So we would draw things like here's Bugs Bunny on a surfboard. Here's Bugs Bunny, you know, just saying hello or with a funny hat or whatever. And so a licensee would come and say, hey, I want to use that and put it on our toothpaste.
Gotcha.
And so they would buy it. And so that's our drawing. You know, it could be either mine, Jerome Moore's, Chica Mori, or Frank Espinoza, or Sanwei Chen. It was a small group of us that did all of it.
Wow.
You know? And so
that's pretty cool.
Any of that stuff for, I would say, the past 30 years, you know, that's all our stuff. And a big chunk of it is mine, you know. So
nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I did that for a long time, you know, and that really helped when I came back to comics after I left. And I wanted to, you know, ease back into comics and see if I could do it, you know, still, because you're just doing stationary characters. You're not drawing continuity.
Okay. Yeah.
And so when I come back to do comics, I did at Marvel, I did like a Hulk Power Pack, you know, and that was fun. You know, I was just like, oh, okay. And it was for all ages, which, you know, it's not necessarily in my wheelhouse that I wanted to do, but I was willing to take, you know, any job just to get the wheels going again, so to speak.
Yeah,
sure.
And so it was fun. It was entertaining, and I had to really dumb down my art, you know, for that, because they say, oh, don't draw it so aggressive. Don't make Hulk look so mean. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm like, okay. So I had to scale back quite a bit, you know. So, but it was fun. It was fun. But it's important to step out of your wheelhouse as an artist to jump into something that that is uncomfortable to master it. And also even artistically, like say, okay, I like this artist. I'm going to figure him out, you know, because there's Marvel covers where I was just, okay, here's Spider-Man. I'm doing Ramita Spider-Man, you know,
Right.
because he's the pinnacle of Spider-Man guys for me. So I'm going to make it feel like Spider-Man that Ramita did, but I'm going to add some licks that I would do. So I'm going to marry the two. Same with any kind of X-Men thing. So my favorite X-Men was anything that Paul Smith, Michael Golden, and Arthur Adams did. Everybody else I don't care about.
Okay.
Those guys were the ones. So every
Right.
time you see something of me doing Wolverine, X-Men, whatever, I'm thinking of those guys. And I try to make it feel like that because that's the thing that attracted me to the characters. You know, and
it
it's
makes
probably
sense,
it's healthy for artists to think that way, and it'll be fun for you to, you know, go in those directions and challenge yourself and say, hey, can I do this? You know, and even me working on Fearsome with Ethan, you know, this is his machination, but it was so compelling. And I said, okay, I've never done a horror comic book before. Let me see if I could do this. You know,
Right.
You know, let me push myself. Let me get out of my comfort zone, you know. And it's been fun so far, and I'm discovering things in myself that I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. So it's been kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about as far as like the experience with doing that, but I mean, kind of just covered it. Yeah, since you brought it up, guys, I do have links below, everyone. So David's recent work here, Fearsome, is crowdfunding right now to the tune of $82,515, 679 backers. This is written by Ethan, created all that, and David's doing the art. Some fantastic covers. You got an Ethan cover. Obviously, you got David's cover right here. Well, I really like this. What was the concept behind here? Because there's so much going on, so much kind of storytelling.
Well,
This is a beautiful cover, man.
Well, that's exactly, you know, what it was. I was told to tell a story with mine.
Right.
You know, so I wanted it to reflect what's going on in the book, like old comic books of yesteryear. That's what they would do. You know what I mean? Instead of just merely a pinup of, you know, the guy in action and stuff like that. So I wanted it to say something that would draw you in. And the more you see something, there's something else behind that you go, oh, and once you read the book, you're going to go back to that cover and go, oh, damn, you know,
Yeah,
there was a clue here, you know, so it was kind of fun.
I need to back this book because I'm really interested in seeing what you've done with the book, and I love this cover, so I'm gonna definitely have to pick that up. But yeah, it's kind of funny because it probably started in the 90s. The guy I remember the most kind of perpetuating the pinup covers is Greg Capullo when he was on Spawn. Because they kind of really went away from the storytelling covers, which I like either or. You know, I'm a fan of art, so you can have a really awesome just splash page, and I'll buy the book, have a cool cover like this that tells a story, and I'll be intrigued. But he seemed to be the guy that was really just like simple covers, splashy pages, just to kind of draw you in. And they really went away from the storytelling on the covers like they did old school. So it's kind of cool when you see kind of an old school element like this, where you're actually seeing the storytelling. And, you know, you look at something like this and you're like, all right, I'm intrigued just by the cover. You're like, what the hell is going on here? I kind of want to pick it up and read it. So, yeah,
Cool.
fantastic job.
You know, the funny thing about Greg Capullo on Spawn, McFarlane offered me that job before he gave it to Greg.
Really? No
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did a pinup for him, and he said, hey, you think you would want to take over drawing Spawn? And this is like right when all of the craziness was happening, and those guys were offering artists crazy amounts of money.
Right. Yeah.
And he was offering about $1,000 a page, something like that.
Whoa.
And so was Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld was supposed to be giving me a job, you know, and we had already talked earlier, but he was kind of dragging his feet. That's why I was entertaining Todd talking to me, and we were talking on the phone, and he goes, this is when I was kind of in the Adam Hughes, Steve Rude, Dave Stevens kind of mode of my art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he goes, he thought I worked at Gaijin Studios. I was a part of that whole Atlanta contingency, but I wasn't.
Okay.
And he goes, I really like what you guys do, but if I wasn't a Todd McFarlane art fan at all. He goes, but I don't like using profanity, but I'm going to use it for the sake of this story. He goes, I want to ink your, I'm quoting it. I want to ink your pages because, your pencils are really, really clean and nice. And I really want to fuck those pencils up.
Right. It sounds like that would be,
I want to get them real dirty and I want to do this. And then he was saying all this stuff that was turning me off,
I can see that. I can see it. Yeah.
My pencils, I'd labor over them being so clean because I was always penciling for an inker. I wasn't inking myself at that time. And
right.
I hate the idea of someone inking my stuff, not what the pencils were reflecting. And him saying he wanted to do that and how I saw his inks. And I said, after we were on the phone for like over an hour, and so I said, look, can I call you back? And, I'll let you know. And I'm sure he was shocked that I even said that because most people would have jumped at it. And so I immediately got off the phone and called Rob and say, hey, look, Rob, Todd just offered me Spawn. And he said, oh, you don't want to do that. Here, come over here. I got something for you. How about Supreme? You want to draw Supreme? And, that's right up my alley. It's a superhero. Superman, right. Basically. And he said, what did he offer you? And he said, oh, it was about $1,000. He said, yeah, I'll give you that. I was just like, yeah, okay, great. And I called Todd back, to play it cool just a couple of hours later. And I said, hey, Todd, I'm sorry I can't take the job because, Rob, already had this job lined up for me. And I was wondering if I could probably work in both, but that wouldn't be fair to you type thing and stuff like that. And I need to take this stuff, so that's how I kind of got out of it. But looking back in hindsight, I should have took the job with Todd. No, but you know what? I'm glad Greg got it because he's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we do a show on Mondays called the Spawn Review, and we were just talking, and I've said this all the time, like I give all the credit in the world to Todd for creating Spawn and the look of Spawn and that whole world, but it was really Greg that defined the look of Spawn over the years, because he did 80 some odd episodes. I always do that, issues of Spawn, and he really made the character. Like when you think of Spawn, you think of Greg Spawn. At least I do. I don't. Todd Spawn comes second, but Greg Spawn was like the first one I really think of. But that's crazy, man. That's a crazy story. I don't think I've ever heard that. That's wild, man. That's wild.
Yeah, it was wild when I got that phone call. It was weird, but I as a person, I think Todd is a great person. I like him. He's always been a gentleman and nice and funny and all that, but I couldn't take that job. And I think I was just too into myself at that time, which is
not
foolish, bit of a prima donna. Brian Augustine called me that over the phone, my editor at the time, and I hung up on him.
Nice. Well, I think it's funny because I would say that probably most artists, and I was probably like this too when I was a little bit younger, you get so into what you're doing line for line, and you think of someone else going over and just tweaking the tiniest little thing that you're going to notice. Sure. And it's almost like a shot to your ego a little bit. That's like, well, I didn't draw that. So it's, like I want people to see what I drew. And it took me forever to really understand the dynamics between working with a good inker and what they can do for the art, and, how they can, bring it out, tweak it, and all this stuff. When I got a chance to work with Joe Weems and Matt Bat Banning, and also Marlo Aquisa, he's going to yell at me that I pronounce his last name wrong. But just working with those guys really opened my eyes to like the dynamics between a penciler and an inker, and just like how cool the combination can make the image look, you know.
Sure.
But no, I completely get what you're saying. That's funny, dude. That's a funny story. Thanks for sharing it. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, so this is Fearsome. If you guys get a chance, go check it out. Links are down below. Links to follow David are down below as well. You can find him on X, I'm sure Instagram, all over the place, but I do have the X link down below. Before we get out of here, and I'm sure this will probably be, maybe we'll save the full conversation to next time we have you on, because I wouldn't mind diving into it further. But just a quick thought, you know, we were talking before we went live about AI and the fact of, I brought up the example where I was following a guy, an artist named Victor Bogdanovich, who's been in DC, he's been in Marvel, and I'm not sure exactly what he's doing now, but he posted something talking about, it was kind of slamming DC, and he was like, I hope that everybody understands that as soon as the red tape, you know, they get through the red tape, or legally they can figure it out, that they're going to replace everybody with AI when they get the chance. And it just, being somebody that pushes back against AI so much as I do, and I know you do as well, what do you, I mean, obviously the possibilities are great, but what do you think about the entire thing? Like, where will it go? Where will the industry go when that happens?
See, I think, it'll be around, but not for artists. See, I think really, really dystopian, dark, you know, like they do this to meek us and to keep us docile, and we're on our way to all being on a welfare state. You know,
Yeah.
The more they keep going into that, because look at what they're doing with fast food. They raise that price on purpose to destroy it, just to create workers that are not workers, they're machines.
Yeah.
Soon enough, the machines are going to make the food itself, you know, and it's going to, it all is going to lead to, again, that whole welfare state where, you know, you don't own anything, you know, and all this other kind of stuff. I could go down that whole rabbit hole because that's exactly where it goes. And that's what's going to happen with comic books. You know, they've already killed the collector. The true collector is like my age, your age.
Right.
We're dying off. You know, my kids are not collectors. The way they collect is they'll see something on TV or whatever on their little iPhone or whatever, and look at it once, and they're done with it. We cherish things. We're not in the society anymore that cherishes anything like paper.
True.
You know. And so that's disappearing, and they know it. So they can make digital comics, and they can make them cheap again, you know, but it won't be stuff that we like or we need to cherish. And again, even movies were the gateway into destroying all of it, because it created a new type of fan. Because a fan now is a person who went to a movie and bought a t-shirt.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's
not a person who has 20 boxes of comics like I do, you know, or more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're dying off. So AI is just going to accelerate that even more, because they want that to be the case anyway, because their money is in the person who goes to the movie and buys a t-shirt.
Yeah.
They don't care if you know the back history. That's why they're doing crappy movies now. That's why they hire writers who don't have a history of knowing who these characters are. They don't want you to, because they want to reinvent them for the dummies. The fans that just buy the t-shirt and go to the movies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So AI is just going to speed that thing up even further. You know, they don't hire artists because they like them. Only editors do that. But the larger picture behind the editors, no, they hire an artist just to maintain their IP.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about how good you are. If the art sold like crap or looked like crap but sold like gangbusters, they'd hire that guy. They wouldn't
Right.
hire Adam Hughes. They wouldn't hire Travis Charest. They wouldn't hire Ethan Van Sciver. They wouldn't hire these people who are great at what they do.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a business now. It's corporate people, it's lawyers, it's all of this kind of stuff that has nothing to do with art. They don't care about art.
Yeah, it's a bummer. As
Yeah.
like I see it, obviously creeping into the indie scene with the thing I get in arguments with people about when it comes to AI are the people that just kind of want to, and I call it cheating the process, right? Like Sean and I, we came up loving to draw, and much like you, spending years to learn how to draw, how to sequentially tell a story, how to do all of the respectful things that is a comic book form. And then you get a lot of these guys coming up like, oh, I'll just AI it, and I'm just like, well, one, where's the soul in that? The soul dynamics, and you kill the art form that is comic books, because it's not just like, hey, let's have a pretty picture. Like, yeah, we love the pictures, right? But the actual form of a comic book is the sequential storytelling and the way that it's done, the way that the eyes are led to the page and panels and all that kind of stuff. And you get a crop of these people that are just kind of coming up now that's just like, oh, we can prompt this, prompt that. We can make a good looking comic that's going to fool a normie, and those are the guys I normally fight. I wonder, to you, David, will there still be a market, because I argue this, of original art? But now that you kind of said that the collectors are dying off, that just kind of made me think completely different. That will that disappear one day? And all of a sudden, like, everything we love in this medium could be gone at some point.
Oh, I think so. Like I said, I go real dark. It's all going to go away. That's why, for the most part, I sell everything that I try to enjoy it while I can and just get it out and use it for the necessities that I need,
Right.
Because I don't see someone my kid's age going, oh man, I want to buy some original art. It just doesn't exist.
Man. Yeah,
and if it does, they're like less than 1% out there. And that's terrible. Look at comic book stores, they're disappearing.
Yeah.
It's for a reason, because we are dying off, and we didn't raise our young people, and society is moving at such an accelerated, and they're spoiled that we didn't teach them or raise them on these things that are precious and why they should be precious and maintained. Look at even music. Music always goes through. Look, there's hardly any R&B singers out there anymore.
Yeah,
because everything is rap, and the next thing is techno, and the next thing is this, and the next thing is this. It's our downfall. It's us digitally creating Babylon again. It's just
I feel you.
It's all of that, and we should appreciate it while it's here, and do our best while we're here. But I don't know if it'll disappear in our lifetime. It most likely will.
Yeah.
But it is dying fast, and it's dying even faster because greater, I don't want to say systems, but things that have more money behind it and the push to promote.
Yeah.
They're failing, and when they fail, it makes us fail.
Right.
On a larger scale, not in a micro scale. There's still guys that could get great crowdfunding things, and it'll spike up, but the larger swath, because they're killing the genre. Look at they're killing Star Wars, they're killing Marvel, they're killing DC, they're killing all of this stuff, and like I said, I could go on and on, but that's the direction.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get you back on, because I think it's an interesting topic to really go into. But yeah, I've never understood people's desire to speed up the demise of everything because in the name of technology or convenience, so that's definitely something to dive into. It sucks. I think anybody that watches this channel, I mean, we are also very much in support of when it comes to comics, specifically the the original medium, you know, even if it is digital artists, but people that are hand drawing, putting heart and soul into comics, you know, like I will never get attracted to be into something that is AI. And even if I'm fooled at some point, and if I find out it's AI, I will drop it right off the bat because I have no support for that whatsoever. I think it's complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah, people who do that, they're complicit with destroying us.
Yeah,
And putting us out of work. So I don't have no love for any of those people who entertain it. It's funny to see some AI things. Oh, that's kind of funny. Like they make, you know, Adam West Batman, you know, look super buff or whatever it is.
Right.
You know, something weird. But the reason why you like art, it's not because someone perfected something and made something look so crisp and nice. You're attracted to perfect imperfections.
There you go.
You can't always pinpoint what it is, but something internally in your head that goes, I like that because I know a person did that.
Right. Exactly. It's like the human ingenuity, you know,
exactly.
Like you can recognize when somebody else has put the effort in through talent, through hard work, whatever you want to call it. And then you can admire that piece of artwork, whether it's paper or whether it's art drawn or created by hands, but you admire that because it was created by a person. And that astounds you because, like I said before, when you recognize that talent, you sit there and be like, wow, how did that person do that? And you marvel at that, you know, completely gone and lost with AI. And that's depressing. It is. You know, I can't help but kind of be depressed about that.
Should be every artist who is an artist, who claims to be an artist, should be railing against it and say to these companies, you can't have this, you know, or we're just going to quit because you can't compete with it, you know. But you're like John Henry going up against the machine. You'll beat it once, but after that, you're dead.
Good point.
Yep.
So guys, go out there and support real stuff, not created by robots. I'll say that. Before we jump out of here, and David, we'll definitely have to have you back on because this was a fun conversation, and I feel like there's so much more we can get into in a lot of different areas. Before we go, I want to say real quick, we do have books on the show that we do. Sean's got a book called Type 1 that's out right now, live on Indiegogo and Fund My Comic. Everybody go check it out. We got links below for that as well. We are rocking like very close to hitting 10K altogether on both platforms, right? Or did we cross that?
No, we're very close. We're
okay.
6-7 away. But anyway, thank you for everybody that's backed. You know my drill. Don't be a bum. Back Type 1 and Action Adventure Story. If you like Mayan and Aztec and cartoons and comics, this book's up your alley. I got a great bunch of friends that did some awesome variant covers.
Yes.
And working on pages as we speak. Going away this weekend. Going to be working on pages with the family. So very excited. Love to be able to create in comic books. And I'm going back to doing it traditionally hard pencils.
Yeah, I've been working on them. I've been working on them for a couple of years now, and finally getting back to doing some traditional on the paper drawing. So
there's a romance to it, you know, kind of finding your way in the gesture and chiseling it out like we talked about earlier. But thank you everybody that believes in this project. If you haven't yet, please back or share it out, and we should have some pages coming to show with the next few weeks color wise by Dan Kemp. So,
hell yeah, looking forward to it. Everybody check out links below. I have a book called Reaper Destroyer that is in the process, hopefully here pretty soon, of getting the supplemental book all lettered up. The main book is lettered. We're going through the process of getting things ready for print. So once we get all that shit started, we will start getting to printing and get to fulfillment. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be the first time I'm doing fulfillment. But yeah, shout out to everybody that's backed this book. This is kind of my, I always say this wrong. It's not my ode to the 90s comics. It's not. It's my influences. Everything I was influenced by as a kid, whether it was comic books or movies, it comes from the 90s. This book is kind of my brain dump of everything I loved about the medium into this character, the dark kind of anti-heroes. If you love Spawn, you love the darkness, you love the Guyver, you're going to love this book. Although when you read it, it's got a completely unique story. It's not a ripoff whatsoever. Got a beautiful Dale Keown cover. I always got to show this off because this was one of my pride and joys. I was able to get an homage. So my idea behind that was grab up Dale, do an homage to Pit #1, which is my all-time favorite comic book. And we actually got a chance to get Joe Chiodo to color this. He painted this by hand. And Chance Wolf, who did the original logo for Pit and doing the lettering, come and mock this all up. So it's the first time that all three of those guys worked on a cover together since the Pit days. So like you're talking about 30 years, and they jammed together on this cover. So I'm very, very excited about that. Check it out. Kind of a mystery surrounding the story. I don't talk too much about it, except to say that there's a man trapped in a supernatural suit of armor inhabited by the ancient spirit of death who's trying to possess his soul. Lots of stuff to get into, but I want to see people read it and dive into it, and we can talk more when we get ready for issue 2. Lots of talent on this book, including guys like Joe Weems, Matt Bat Banning, Marlo Aquiza, Dave Kemp doing the majority of the colors, as well as Kyle Ritter knocking out the first 3 pages of this book. Did a fantastic job. Shout out to Kyle. Hope everything's doing good. But yeah, check it out, guys. Links down below. You can watch the show back later. Any other shows, we talk more about the books. We won't keep you too long. We'll shill it at a different time. David, thank you so much for coming on. This was an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I love that. Look at that skull.
Get fearsome.
Yes, grab up Fearsome. Links below. That book looks awesome. I'm gonna go back it. I gotta get that cover. It looks amazing. I was sold just on that cover. Let's go. Chat, you guys are amazing. Thank you for showing up as you do all the time. We have 60 people watching over on X, 30 on YouTube, and then we're still building a channel over on Facebook and on Twitch. But Greg Harms was over on Facebook this entire time. Shout out to you, brother. I appreciate you over there. Guys, we will be back on Monday for the Comic Block, the Spawn review, followed by Appreciating Comic Book Art Live. Check us out there. We're going to be reviewing Spawn 354 and then diving into maybe another 90s independent book on Aqua. So check us out there at 9 p.m. That's it. David, where can we find you? Where can we follow your work at? If we don't have the links below, where can people follow you?
I'm on Instagram under DWAMS Art, and also on X under the same. And I'm on Facebook also, so follow me in all those places. I don't do DeviantArt, but my DeviantArt page is still up under Brohawk.
Nice. I'm sure I got a DeviantArt page somewhere as well, and I haven't touched it in years, but that was the craze at one point. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to say this. I'm going to close this out like I always do. We're going to run the short outro so we can get David out of here. Be good to each other. Take care of one another. And as always, picture me naked. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.
Drown!